first glance, it sounds absurd. A filmmaker, a movie from 1999, a scandal that explodes decades later. And yet, once the idea takes hold, it refuses to let go. Stanley Kubrick's final film, Eyes Wide Shut does not feel like a normal movie. It never did. Even on release, audiences sensed something unsettling beneath its slow pacing and dreamlike atmosphere. Critics called it cold, distant, oddly restrained. Viewers felt confused, not because they didn't understand the plot, but because the film seemed to look past them, as if it were aimed at someone else entirely. Kubrick was not a careless director. He was obsessive, paranoid about detail, infamous for control. Every frame mattered. Every pause was intentional. Every symbol was chosen with precision. Kubrick didn't make films quickly, and he didn't make them casually. His movies were not entertainment, they were examinations of power, of violence, of human systems hidden beneath polite society. And Eyes Wide Shut was different from everything he had done before. On the surface, the story is simple. A wealthy New York doctor, played by Tom Cruise, drifts through a series of encounters after his marriage is shaken by a confession. His journey leads him, almost accidentally, into a secret masked gathering of the elite, a ritualized orgy guarded by absolute silence and absolute power. He is warned, he is threatened, and he is told very clearly that he does not belong there. The most important moment comes not during the ritual itself, but after. The doctor is not punished publicly. He is not arrested. He is not killed. Instead, the message is delivered calmly. You saw something you were never meant to see. You are alive only because we allow it. And you will walk away pretending none of this exists. That message, in 1999, felt exaggerated, fictional, symbolic. Today, it feels uncomfortably familiar. Years later, the name Jeffrey Epstein becomes public knowledge, then infamous, then unavoidable. A financier with no clear source of wealth. A man connected to royalty, politicians, intelligence agencies, scientists, celebrities. A man who owned private islands, private jets, and private access to the powerful. And suddenly, people began watching Eyes Wide Shut again. This time, differently. They noticed the masks, the uniforms, the strict hierarchy, the ritualistic nature of the event. They noticed how the women were interchangeable, anonymous, silent. How consent was ambiguous, irrelevant, or simply assumed. How the men wore masks not to hide shame, but to erase accountability. Most importantly, they noticed something else. No one in the film seems afraid of consequences. Not legal consequences, not moral consequences, not social consequences. Only consequences for outsiders. The doctor is not threatened because what he saw was illegal. He is threatened because he saw it at all. That distinction matters. In conspiracy theory circles, this is where the story begins to twist. Why would Kubrick choose this subject for his final film? Why portray elite secrecy so directly? Why make the punishment psychological rather than violent? Why end the film not with exposure, but with silence? Then comes the detail that fuels everything. Stanley Kubrick died just days after screening what was described as his final cut of the film to Warner Brothers executives. Official cause, heart attack. Age, 70. No autopsy requested. The film was released months later, edited. The studio insists nothing important was removed, that changes were only made for pacing and ratings, that Kubrick approved everything. But Kubrick was not alive to confirm that, and fans noticed something strange. Scenes feel truncated, transitions feel abrupt. Moments of implication fade just as they become uncomfortable. Rumors begin to circulate that the original cut was longer, that it showed more context, that it made the power dynamics clearer, that it went too far. No proof has ever surfaced, but the timing never stopped bothering people. Why would Kubrick, known for controlling every aspect of his work, suddenly surrender final authority at the very end? Why would a man who delayed films for years allow his last statement to be altered without him? And why, of all topics, did his final film focus on secret sexual power among elites? Conspiracy theorists point to Kubrick's history. This was not a director interested in fantasy for its own sake. Paths of Glory exposed military corruption. Dr. Strangelove mocked nuclear leadership. A Clockwork Orange examined institutional violence. The Shining dissected family, madness, and isolation. Kubrick repeatedly aimed his camera at systems of control and followed them to their darkest conclusions. So the question becomes unavoidable. Was Eyes Wide Shut a metaphor, or was it a warning? In the film, the elite do not fear exposure because they believe exposure is impossible. They operate in a closed loop of power, protection, and mutual silence. The police are irrelevant. The courts are irrelevant. The truth is irrelevant. What matters is membership. Those inside are untouchable. Those outside are disposable. When Epstein's case unravels, the parallels multiply. A vast network, muted accountability, mysterious deaths, missing footage, sealed documents, names that never fully surface. And once again, the final message to the public seems eerily similar to the one delivered to Tom Cruise's character. You can know this exists, but you cannot do anything about it. Kubrick never said his film was about real people. He never mentioned Epstein. He never claimed to be exposing anything. But Kubrick also believed that the most effective truths are never stated outright. They are shown. And if Eyes Wide Shut was his final message, then it may not have been meant to accuse, but to reveal a pattern, a structure, a system that repeats itself across history, wearing different names and faces. Whether Kubrick knew something specific, or whether he simply understood how power behaves when it believes it is invisible, remains unanswered. But one thing is certain. Once you see the film through this lens, it becomes very hard to unsee it. And that is where the theory truly begins. Years pass, and the film refuses to stay buried. Not because of Kubrick, because of the world catching up to it. In the last few years, the internet has changed the way power leaks. Documents surface without context. Names appear without explanation. Flight logs, guest lists, sealed court files, partial transcripts, fragments of a larger picture spill into public view. Not all of it is verified. Not all of it is complete. But the sheer volume changes everything. People begin to notice something unsettling. The structure looks familiar. Not specific scenes. Not exact events. The pattern dash. Elite gatherings hidden behind philanthropy. Private islands. Private aircraft. Private clubs. Invitations extended not through official channels, but through trust and mutual compromise. A culture where silence is currency and access is the reward. Online comparisons multiply. Screenshots circulate next to stills from Eyes Wide Shut dash. Masked halls beside red carpet photos. Ritualistic formality beside casual smiles. Again and again, the same observation appears. This looks like the movie. The theory evolves. Kubrick wasn't predicting a scandal. He was depicting a mechanism dash. In the film, the ritual is not erotic for its own sake. It is ceremonial, controlled, hierarchical. The sex is secondary. What matters is who is allowed to participate and who is not. That distinction becomes crucial when people analyze the files now circulating online. Many of the names connected to Epstein were never charged. Some were never questioned. Some were mentioned once and then vanished from coverage entirely. Legal outcomes rarely matched public expectation. Investigations stalled. Cases narrowed. Settlements replaced trials. To conspiracy theorists, this mirrors the film perfectly. Not because everyone involved was guilty, but because accountability behaved selectively dash. In Eyes Wide Shut dash, the protagonist assumes that exposure will bring justice. He believes that if something is wrong, it must also be vulnerable. He is wrong. The people in control are not afraid of being seen. They are afraid of outsiders gaining leverage dash. And leverage does not come from knowledge alone. It comes from power matching power. This is where the modern internet deepens the theory. Files appear, disappear, reappear altered. Videos are removed. Counts are banned. Algorithms bury certain discussions while amplifying others. To skeptics, this is moderation and misinformation control. To conspiracy theorists, it is containment dash, not erasure management. Kubrick's film ends not with revelation, but with return. The characters go back to normal life. Christmas lights glow. A toy store is full of noise and color. The horror is not that evil was exposed. The horror is that nothing changes. Online, people begin to ask uncomfortable questions. Why do scandals involving extreme wealth so often dissolve into ambiguity? Why do documents remain sealed for decades? Why do consequences rarely scale with influence? Again, no single answer exists, but the pattern persists. Kubrick, in interviews, once said that the most frightening truths are those we already suspect but cannot prove. Eyes Wide Shut does not accuse. It normalizes secrecy dash. It suggests that the true power of elites is not what they do, but how effortlessly they move past it. The Epstein files, whatever their ultimate legal value, ignited something similar. Not certainty, suspicion. People do not agree on what is real. They agree on what feels protected dash. And this is where Kubrick's death re-enters the conversation. Not as proof, as symbolism. A filmmaker obsessed with systems of power releases a film about an untouchable elite and dies days later. Officially, naturally, uneventfully, the story ends cleanly. To conspiracy theorists, this does not mean murder. It means closure without explanation dash. The same way Epstein's story ends abruptly. The same way many associated questions never receive answers. The parallels are not evidence. They are resonance. And resonance is powerful. Kubrick never named names. He never pointed fingers. He never claimed to expose real crimes. Instead, he constructed a world where power is self-sealing, where those inside the circle protect each other instinctively, not because of shared guilt, but shared vulnerability. That idea feels uncomfortably modern, especially now when leaked files, redacted documents, and half-told stories circulate endlessly online. When people sense that they are seeing the edges of something vast, but never the center. The theory reaches its final form here. Kubrick wasn't telling us who was involved. He was telling us how it works dash, how secrecy organizes itself, how wealth insulates behavior, how morality becomes irrelevant inside closed systems, how the truth can exist openly and still be unreachable. Whether Epstein's case fits that system perfectly is still debated. Whether Kubrick knew anything specific remains unproven. But once these ideas overlap, they fuse into something hard to ignore. A feeling that some stories are designed not to be solved, only survived. Kubrick's final message, if it was one, may not have been a warning of names and places. It may have been simpler, that when power becomes private enough, even truth loses jurisdiction. And in that world, the most dangerous thing is not ignorance. It is knowing and realizing that knowledge alone changes nothing.